Should we take that?
What?
The love languages?
That's what I was thinking if we
What
were
is
going to do
that?
it later. I just sent you a link.
I'm looking at it, but what am I filling out?
So you
Oh,
scroll
just
down a little
Scroll
bit.
down.
Like the I feel most loved thing?
Yeah.
So we're supposed to fill this out? There's only 5 questions.
No, but once you hit one, it'll go to the next series of questions. There's 10 total.
So you pick one?
How come watching TV with me isn't on here? That's my love language.
I don't see a skim my dish on here. None of these apply to me, just for the record.
You pick
None of these.
the closest one.
It's funny. I feel like I need to do this quiz twice. Because if I'm in personality mode A, I feel this. Personality mode B, I feel like
Homemade birthday cake, not a fucking chance. People touch it. Ugh. I am saying,
Jen has no love language.
I got nothing.
Hello and welcome to Table for Five with no reservations. Take a seat at the table for a fresh, sweet, salty tart, and pleasantly bitter conversation.
Thank you for taking a seat at the table for our love series, All the Love. Tonight I have Jamie,
Hello.
Jen,
Hello.
Rachel,
hey everyone.
Kim,
Hi.
and I am Tabitha. Tonight we are talking about finding time for love, relationship style. How do you find it? Where is it? Help us find it, people. This is what we're going to be talking about tonight. So we did a little fun love language quiz on the Pinterest, which in relationships therapists recommend that you do with your partner sometimes to figure out what their love language is so you can provide to them. Who would like to share their love language? What did you get? How about Jamie Ramos?
My love language is acts of service.
Oh.
Which I bet your husband's thankful for that.
I knew she would say.
What does it say about acts of service?
It's a service.
Natasha?
For you, actions speak louder than words. In relationships, you thrive the most when your loved one does special things for you often and sometimes unexpectedly. To you, words and gifts come easily, but acts of service take planning, time, effort, and energy and show that someone cares. You feel the most loved when someone does a small gesture for you, like washing the dishes, cooking, mowing the lawn, or cleaning the house. These simple actions communicate to you that your loved one is thinking about you and paying attention to your needs. Likely, you do unexpected things for your loved ones because this is how you like to receive love the most. You feel upset when someone breaks a promise or is lazy because it creates extra work for you, and it communicates that that person doesn't care about your feelings. The words that make you the happiest are, "Let me take care of that for you."
Let me handle
I
that.
partially agree
I
with
like
you.
those words too.
I think it's more so that I'm kind of a lazy person, and so
Take things off my plate.
I'm just the youngest. I'm not the youngest of 6. I'm one of the last 2 youngest of 6 kids, and so there was always someone around to help me or finish things for me, and I just am kind of used to that in life. I don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing, but I do feel like I do that for a lot of other people. Reading this, I feel I would have to figure out my husband's love language. We did this a long time ago and I can't remember, but I definitely am not like always offering to do things for him. I'm like, "Here, dear, let me cook for you tonight," or like, "You have to ask me to do this." Like, yeah.
Well, I do think that you have talked openly about not saying no on this podcast. So maybe that is how you show your love.
My husband will say I say no to only him. So
Mine
these
too.
things and the things Jen was just
The other things. What about you, Jen? What'd you get?
Well, it's not really surprising what I got. I got receiving gifts. Everybody's good for is that little blue box. It's always good for. It says, however, receiving a gift is not about shallow materialistic gain. Instead, it is the gift. It's what the gift symbolizes that counts. To you, a gift is a tangible reminder that someone put thought and effort into picking something out because you're important to them. Which is, I mean, I know a lot of people don't, nothing wrong with the little blue box that comes for your birthday or for Valentine's Day or Christmas. Yeah.
It's so funny, friend. You
But I don't
As
do
we
well receiving
negotiate-
gifts. I like from like people in general, it kind of makes me uncomfortable, but like from him and whatever.
As we do friend gifts or like a holy Christmas, you've got COVID present among the table. Jen always wants it like cellophane wrapped with a 2-inch satin ribbon. Like she wants the presentation of this beautiful gift. And I'm like, often I can be one of the people that orders said gifts. And I'm like,
Often as in almost
Girl.
100% of the time. you
unless
order
it's
a
like
gift.
February or something.
Yes. Yeah.
My stage of February. Anyways, I'm like, girl, we can get so many more Diet Cokes for her if we just let that basket go. Let's just put it in a laundry bin.
But I am all about the presentation and
it is, yeah.
yeah, like how it's
Carnation hater.
yeah. Oh, I
Do
hate
not
it, like
send
a dead person's
flowers.
flower, man.
Jen has to approve the flowers. If you
I
send
do. I make
flowers
them
and you
send me
put
a
her name
picture
on
before
them.
they send them because I'm always with flowers. That is something I put a lot of thought into for people. But a carnation reminds me of a funeral. That's just me. And so like every certain florist, I use the same ones, little OCD, and they have on file like what I don't like. Easy on the greens, no carnations. Shorter, like it's so.
When we sent flowers to her last year, I called the florist and was like, okay,
Here's the
thing.
deal.
here's
Here's
the
the
deal.
deal. Here's
Mhm.
what we need.
I'm
Don't-
chill. I'm chill.
So I do
No.
like giving as much, like it's not about, necessarily receiving, because actually, other than him, I get super uncomfortable, but I like the whole presentation of giving something to somebody.
Because you want to give them something nice though, which is beautiful. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah. What looks
yeah.
nice. What'd you get, Kimmy?
Quality time.
Mm.
I got enough of that.
She's
Well, it's
like,
funny
what is
'cause,
that?
like-
There's 39 people in here.
Oh, well, that's why we run away and make out with the children, stay home
Yeah.
with Alyssa, and we take off. Bye. Some of the questions it was like split because it depends. Sometimes I like affection. Sometimes I don't want you near me. So it just kind of depends on my mood, which personality is present at the time. I mean, sometimes I feel like we don't even talk to each other for days. You know what I mean? It's like he's laid off now, so obviously we're able to spend that, more time together. And like now we're watching a show. I mean, that's my prime thing is like zoning out, watching a show, and
Yeah.
having good food. That's probably about the best.
mm,
Mm-hmm.
I know.
I mean, unless
food
you
is one of the
can fly me to like an island somewhere. I mean, that would be,
Better.
first choice. Second choice is on the couch.
no
with TV.
small gifts. Just
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not a big one for gifts. Like, I mean, obviously, if you get me a gift, I like it. Like, especially him. But I'm not. I don't really care about gifts, really. I mean, I don't mind getting them, but like, I'm not really one that like accepts them or is like, oh, he better get me something nice. It's like Valentine's Day. Like, we could kill us. We've been together almost 30 years, 4 kids. Don't waste your money on a card.
God.
Leave the
Come home, Cook
$4.99.
me dinner.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I'm gonna go next because I got quality time too. It says it's easy to take those you love for granted each day. Therefore, you feel the most loved and appreciated when someone sets aside time to spend exclusively in your company. You know more than anyone that being in the company of someone physically doesn't mean that they are actually enjoying the intimacy of your company.
Yes.
The people in your life might be on the phone or have their mind elsewhere without giving you attention that makes you feel like you matter to them. This is true in my relationships. Campfire, put on the freaking marshmallows, put on the jams in the background, don't have your phone on.
Phone on the log.
This is me to a T for sure. Sharing quality conversations and enjoying quality activities with those you love. That's me.
And I think this is like something that some people might find odd. And I think this happens when you are in a longer relationship is sometimes I just enjoy just sitting together, not even talking.
Yeah.
And it takes honestly it takes a long time to get that to a point that that's comfortable. But like, I enjoy that now. I'm like, oh God, I'm turning into my parents.
Yeah.
Sometimes I just don't want to talk, but it's nice just to sit together. We don't get a lot of, quiet around here to really be able to do that. But sometimes that's nice too.
Yeah. What about you, Rachel? Rachel, what'd you get?
I am acts of service as well. This, it really is like the crux of our relationship. He and I both have a very similar love language, but it's like frustrating because we both are so similar and we've been together for 23 years and So we can fight at this psychic level. Like, well, then he's gonna, and then I'm gonna, and then I win. But he's doing the same thing, and then she's gonna, and then I'm gonna, and then I win. And then there's no acts of service happening. He stops acts of service, and I'm handling so many of the things as the stay-at-home parent. Then I feel like I'm bleeding out acts of service. And like he's walking muddy on that floor. Oh my God. And he has no idea. I mean, he thinks that like, and I will say over the course of the last 6 months or so, we've really come to a place as a family where we've gotten real about what heart is and how long it's going to be around. And in conjunction with that, I hurt I got hurt. And he had to like step up because I couldn't bend over or like
Physically,
pick that
yeah.
up, but like I
Mhm.
physically could not do. And so it's nice to be able to see that come back into balance. And by back into balance, I mean, find a goddamn balance on the 23rd year. Like, I took him from his mom. We've been together since we were like 15 and 17. Stupid. I mean, I love him to pieces, but like, you should let a little boy become a man. Learn some things like how to work a toaster and stuff before you take them away. I don't know. Just a recommendation.
Learn
Reminds
how
me
to
of that
work.
TikTok or that reel where they call you typing when you come in to pick up your son. That's your husband, you know?
I took somebody in 13 years ago and I'm over it. And then my mother-in-law says no.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Young girls out there, he must do one load of laundry in front of you before you can move to the next level.
Oh, there's a list. There is a list right there. Jamie and I will, you can all add to that list.
Oh my gosh, yes.
But I do believe that acts of service is my thing. It is his, and you know, we're coming into that. So if it's not going well, I'm not suggesting that everybody stick it out the 23 years, but I am saying it's been worth the wait.
So that is the love languages quiz. If you'd like to do that for yourself, figure out how people treat you in the way your heart sings or not. So we wanted to talk about relationships in this life of special needs parenting, disability parenting, finding love and a balance. Who would like to start this conversation?
I can start by saying, because I just finished, that it's changed so much,
Yeah.
that the thing that has helped us to change it is not only like my physically being unable, but there was a time when I was ahead of him in terms of being a special needs mom. I had a greater understanding of things. I was learning through the night, through the day, trying to find resources. So like we hit this thing in a different pace. Looking back, I don't feel like I necessarily slowed down, but there's just like several reasons that he had to accelerate. And we kind of came to the same place. Again, we have the same understanding of like heart's probably rolled into our bill and we'll stick around for a while. That is a reckoning that we've had to face in every layer. And then the tasks necessary to accomplish the things. And like, even the way he asks questions, he feels like it's an act of service to me to be like, oh, hey, how's that going with the waiver system of Minnesota? Well, it's not going well. I'm on the 14th month and haven't gotten anything figured out at that point. You know, like to me, it's like a neggy, but to him, he's like, oh, checking in. So I had to calm down. I had to calm down and accept that like his acts of service are not like neggy and things have gotten better. It's going well.
It's going
You need a
well.
link? I can
Going
provide a
great.
link. You need a link.
Yeah.
His recommendation. I was gonna say it's like when you go into having a child, no matter how that happens, if it's a surprise, if it's planned, at some point you come up with somewhat of a plan of what you're gonna do within that relationship, whatever that relationship is, you know, like, okay, we're gonna parent the child this way, or I'll take on this, you take on that. You come up with a deal. But then when you have a child that I mean, really, if you have any child, let's be honest, things probably aren't going to go how you imagine them
Yeah.
if you haven't had children before. But especially when you have a child with a disability, everything changes. Everything's thrown out the window, and you and that person are taken off guard. So it's really hard to navigate that. And some people make it, some people don't, because it tests everything. It tests your relationship, it tests how you manage. You're really become like a business partner in a way, a lot
Mhm.
faster.
Yes.
in every
Yeah.
other
I
way.
feel like we're coworkers.
Yeah.
Exactly that.
Yes.
You're
Uh-huh.
working on things. And I think for me personally in our relationship, that was the thing. Like it was just, first of all, how do you, like depending how long you've been married or you've known each other, like it's a major thing that happens to you when you find out your child has a disability.
Mhm.
So how do you internally deal with that? And the person next to you is dealing that all on their own in their own way as well.
Mhm.
So it's really hard because you want to react how you're going to react. They want to react how they're going to react, but neither of you know what you're doing at the same time. So you kind of have to like figure it out together. So for us, it just became a lot of like, holy crap, what are we going to do? And I think the best thing and probably the hardest thing that happened with both of us is like, we just had like a moment at one point where we both were like, holy crap, I don't know what to do about this.
Mhm.
Like just admitting that and saying out loud, I think that helped a lot, but it's been a bumpy road. We both, and it's ongoing. Like,
Mhm.
like just recently, the therapist recommended something that I agreed with, but he didn't agree with. Like, there's always, I think we've talked about this before, there's always other people in your like decision making for your child, which other people don't have to deal with. There's always different opinions, and trying to like figure out that together is hard. It's a lot of give and take. It's a lot. And early on in your marriage or when you're starting your family, for that to be like so sudden a part of your marriage, it's really hard. And I know a lot of people can't do it.
The
Mhm.
statistics are crazy about divorce within disability families with disabilities.
Yeah. Well, and I think for us, we're with Rachel on the time frame, but like we had been together a super long time before we had kids. And so we had this relationship, we had these cycles of fighting that, you get in patterns that you get into, things that you have the same fight, over and over and over again in relationships,
'Cause-
usually about different things. But then when you add in like the emotions, the layers of logistics in itself, like managing the logistics of, even this week we were dealing with insurance. We had a lapse in insurance for a month, that from changing jobs, and it's a nightmare right now. I've made 30 calls to the insurance company, to the providers, to everyone under the sun about this goddamn insurance problem, and it's maddening. And sometimes you can have conversations about it, sometimes you don't have space to have conversations about it because you've been on hold for 45 minutes every day for the past 2 months, and you're communicating things. If one person's talking to the provider and the other one's not, then you have to
Mhm.
translate everything, and that creates problems. And then it feels like you're telling them how to parent their kid. There's like so many layers to it. And then on top of it, like Jamie was saying, dealing with the emotions of your child being diagnosed with a lifelong disability, which is
Mhm.
what it is classified as. Our kids are going to need support and assistance for the rest of their lives, no matter what that looks like. That in itself is like, you have to have hard conversations about that. And there's these lingering thoughts, I think, in the background that you're almost afraid to say out loud to each other, which creates like a space.
So you know what you should do is go on somebody else's page and then air that linen a year ago on the piece of plastic.
Yeah. I think that naturally parenting in this landscape creates a space in your marriage that you have to work hard to shorten, to make smaller. It takes a lot of effort and energy to find connection. And, we struggle with it for sure. I
Mhm.
mean, we're in marriage counseling, we're in individual counseling. I'm a big believer in therapy. I think that sometimes you need support from a third party and insights into yourself that you can't see in the space of your own home. But we definitely, are fighting to close that space with each other.
Billy
And
and I made that that change too, to say that we are fighting for each other, not fighting each other in this.
Yeah.
Like we're fighting for our family to be together, not fighting his perspective versus mine all the time. I mean, there is a right and a wrong way to do some shit, but
Yeah. And you have to dig deep to like find small moments of connection when you can, because you're like a lot of days I wake up completely drained the second that my feet hit the floor. I have to like draw energy to make it through every task that I have to get through. And then to also feel like you have space to give to your partner is hard. And that's the first thing to go. I mean, honestly, you have to care for your children, you have to make it through work. And sometimes at the end of the day, I just want to be by myself and quiet. Like I don't want to try and connect, which is like a hard reality to grasp. But I think it's a pretty popular conversation in our community about finding connection and dealing with balancing the conversations that you have to have that are maddening to have, logistics of everything. So, it's a lot. What is your take on relationships, Jen, in this landscape of life?
So I'm the unmarried one at the table. Although Kaya's dad and I, we got together in 2002. We were together for a long time. He's in California, I'm in Vancouver. We did a lot of back and forth. I think it's actually easier when you don't have a kid because you hop on a plane and you go.
Yeah.
Right. And then
Yeah.
when she was a baby, we did a lot of that back and forth. It was easier until this thing called autism, although she's a great little traveler. But I think, we don't live together, so I don't have that day-to-day struggles that you guys have. But what I do have is the resentment of the simplicity of him thinking this is. He has 4 grown neurotypical children. So in his mind, well, I had 4 kids. Well, I got
different.
one with autism. Hold my beer. I mean, it's
Yeah.
so I have that resentment for, and that put a lot of friction between us. And then when you were saying about the therapy, we've never agreed on a single therapy since day one, not
Yeah.
a single therapy. And so that caused that put a lot of, and then I would have the, well, I'm here doing it, so you don't really get an opinion on it kind of thing.
That gets
Yeah.
more votes.
Yeah, so it hasn't worked out well for us. I don't blame the autism, but it definitely was a wedge, and it was just a natural thing that happened. I mean, we just
Yeah.
couldn't agree on anything, and these are big, important decisions,
Yeah.
all of those things that come with it. So yeah, it didn't really work out for us. So we have a Gmail. Everyone feel free to send in.
All the potential
Taking
partners
applications.
still taking those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Husband for Jen.
No.
Say like dating, even date, like I couldn't even
So
imagine, like, hey,
I've been
on this.
trying this dating thing a little bit. It's not working out too well for me either. One, because I don't leave her very often, and that's a whole other subject. But going out and doing things are hard, like they just are. And I'm used to going to bed. So you guys know I'm so tired from staying up the last few weeks trying to have a social life after she goes to bed and try to do this thing called dating. And it's killing me. Like
Yeah.
I'm done. I mean, Rachel, I'm just done. I'm tired.
Yeah.
I don't know how anyone finds anyone when they have a kid with a disability. I mean, it's just.
I've talked to, I don't mean to speak for you, but like I've heard you, Jen, discuss how all of these things are on your plate and your plate alone. And then you have to like parcel out how anybody else involved in the team gets information, whether it's her dad or a teacher or whatever, some component of the larger team for Kaya. And it's still all the weight on you. And then you're supposed to date. Like it doesn't, like you're still feeling the weight of the whole life. And I say burden because there's so many tasks and so many things and like so many parts all on your shoulders alone that you don't necessarily feel, even though you're wrong, you don't necessarily feel like you're this sparkling lady on a pedestal that's super desirable because you're like crushed under the weight of this whole life. You
Like
are,
Tabitha said,
however,
those
a
hard
shining
times.
example of a strong woman, and your kid is worthy of relationships. And, like there will be time for you to have dates, but it's heavy.
Well, like Tabitha said, you have to have these hard conversations and,
Yep.
and we've had them. And a lot of it is our custody agreement, it wasn't anything bad, but he's in the US, I'm here. So we had to do some legal stuff. And her long-term care, like we can't agree on. I mean, he's like, why are you worrying about that? Like, why is that such a big deal? I'm like, because if anything happens to me, unlike your other children, she is not capable of taking care of herself. And so then it spirals, right? And it's,
Yeah.
yeah. So again, he doesn't live it every day. He doesn't really truly understand it on a level. I mean, he's read all the books. If you need a link, he's your guy. However, if you don't live it every day, it's very different, right? And so that's just caused, I mean, yeah, that's enough about me. We don't really, I don't do well with it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, when you're talking about like these things, just in relationships, even with your family, with whomever, there are those things where it's like, why are you thinking about that? Because it's a necessity, because I do have to think about these things, even with your partner, like maybe they'll be on a different track of like, oh, we need to think about tomorrow. And you're on a track of like, well, what about the future? Like, what are we going to do for the future? Like for those of us who have anxiety at this table.
Hello.
Yeah. That can I mean, I've had
Like every seat's filled on that one,
Yeah.
Tab.
I'm like, oh my God, the whole table's shaking with anxiety.
Yeah.
Vibrating
Flipping,
table.
but
I
it's
can-
shaking.
I can just spiral down into these like depths of like, what are we going to do? And it's debilitating sometimes. And it's not something I can shut off because of my anxiety. And I need to like work through some of a solution in order to move past it. And even that in itself is like,
Well,
Uh,
at the end of the day, we don't have the control over it.
no,
That's
yeah,
Right,
that's the
I
issue.
mean-
That's what makes it really hard because I can find the perfect place now at 25, but that doesn't mean that place is going to be available in 10 years
right.
or functional or operational. Like, do
Right.
you know what I mean? Like if that's the route that somebody's going, or you could have these grand plans, but like we lose the control when we're not here anymore. And I think that is the scariest thing for the parents. And then when you have parents who have anxiety that don't do good when they're not in control of things, and it's like,
Again,
you know,
5 seats
then
at the
it's-
table.
I was like, again, the table.
All of us here. What about you,
know.
Kim? How do you feel? I mean, you have an adult daughter, which give us some solutions here to how to make this
Well,
work. Give us the
so
gems of wisdom, please.
me and my husband have been together since I've been 16. So we essentially have grown up together. Although we, unlike Tabitha and Rachel, had our family soon. We weren't together for years and then had a family. We had a family very soon after being together with our daughter with special needs. I mean, I was 20 and he was 25. So we were still getting our relationship groove on, never mind navigating the world with a child with a disability. But to me, a lot of it comes down to very basic things, relationship wise, communication. I have learned you need to communicate. You cannot assume. I don't care how many hints you give. They don't get the hints. You need to say, this is what I need, or this is what I'm going to do, or this is what I need you to do. Because they just don't, they don't understand hints. They don't understand passive aggressiveness. They don't understand subtle. You have to flat out say, this is what I need. But in turn, you
Rent
also
a billboard.
you have to just say it.
Flashcards.
Just spit it out. And it's hard because sometimes it's like we don't want to say we need help, or we don't want to say, we need this time away, or whatever it might be, but they're not going to get the hint. And I've learned the hard way. Just take it from me. Whatever it is you need, you tell them. And that's that. But on the opposite hand, you have to
How many
also,
times, how loud and how nice? Just wondering.
you know what? Usually it only takes one time, really. Usually
God,
it takes
call-
one time.
Neil needs Billy's number.
Because they
Usually
don't-
it only takes one
It's like
time.
they can't do what they don't know. They don't realize. I also think a big thing is sometimes you gotta agree to disagree. They're not always gonna see things your way. And no matter how much you try to force it, it's literally like forcing a puzzle piece that doesn't fit. You can't do it. There's just gonna be things that you're not gonna agree. And it's frustrating, but you have to learn to accept that in both ways. We don't always see eye to eye on things, and that's okay. I mean, you're different people. Like, fight for the things that are most important for you, but for us, it's like we'll fight over what we're gonna have for dinner. I mean, we'll like almost be in a divorce over that.
We
But the
bicker
big
too. I
thing-
think that that's part of our success. And I hear you and Neil do it. We bicker to keep the tension low. I'd rather yell at you about something stupid like the paper towels being cockamamie. So we like let the air out of the pressure cooker a little.
But I feel like the big things we're pretty much on board together with. And he's kind of like lets me like I'm the mom, whatever I really think he feels like I know best, which I know sounds great, but sometimes that's frustrating too, because sometimes I want somebody who's not just going to say, oh, whatever you think or whatever you want.
Yeah.
You want somebody to kind of weigh in a little bit. So for the people that don't have that, of course, it sounds nice, but sometimes it's like, it's just another thing of like you doing all, it's like we have very kind of roles. There's certain things he does and there's certain things I do, but we are capable of doing each other's roles. And that's something that you have to keep in mind. Just because you're always the one who makes the phone calls doesn't mean he can never make a phone call. Or just because he's the one who always does this doesn't mean that you can't come over and kind of do this. You gotta just find a way to like work together the best that you can. I mean, we're outnumbered. We got 4 against 2 here. So
Make that team, that side of the team strong over there.
and I think that there's a lot of things that are important to me that sometimes not important to him. And it caused a lot of conflict for a lot of years, but I had to like come to the terms with the fact that I have a high value on like bringing my kids out, not just Alyssa, like all my kids, like doing things with them, going places. That's how I grew up. We were in the city. We went everywhere. We took buses, trains, walked everywhere. We went, any fair, the beach, fireworks, whatever was going on, my father took us there. So I have a high value of it. He didn't have that going on. There wasn't a lot of money. He took responsibility of his siblings. Those things weren't as much of a value to him, aren't as much of a value to him. So I had to come to terms with like some of the things that I want to do. I just have to go and do on my own. It's just not, and that's just an example for us. And not to say that obviously if I really want to do something, he'll do it, but it's like I have to pick the few things that I really want him to, or I'm gonna really make him do.
What's
But I
on the
had
list?
to kind of like come to terms with that. And that's hard to do, but
Mhm.
in time you just kind of learn and sometimes respect that, like you need them to respect what you need. You have to respect what they need. So if they need time out and they need time away, even if it's on their only day off, you know what I mean? Like they have all the pressure that we have, but they have it in a different way. And just finding time to be together, like that's so important. And I mean, there was times that all I did was drive the kids around. Like he cooked dinner, I worked, I drove from here to there to there. I mean, we barely had conversations some nights, it's just, you got to find,
It's a good thing.
time
Otherwise you'd have
to-
6 kids.
I mean,
Those
yeah,
guys.
well, I probably would if my tubes weren't tied. But I think that for us, sometimes it's like going out to breakfast on a Sunday or going for a car ride and just getting away from the chaos. Like those are like the main things that I think are kind
quality
of
of time.
universal for everybody. And I think
Yeah.
as far as when you have a child with a disability, you also have to understand that everybody's process is different. And I can understand that in hindsight. At the time, I didn't necessarily. My husband's a very private person. I'm not. I'll tell anybody anything. I'll talk to anybody about anything. He's not like that. And I didn't understand that because he never really talked about our daughter's disability. Like people he worked with for years and years they still don't know some people. And at first I took it as almost as like he was embarrassed.
Shame about it, maybe.
Yeah, but like he just, I feel like was more protecting her like privacy and her dignity.
And also maybe getting what he needed out of work because he didn't have to go talk about it there.
Well, in his process,
If I
was
had a
different.
lane of my life where this part didn't exist, I might just go sit there for 8 hours a day.
He's very different. He processes things very differently than I do. So there was one point I remember thinking like, why doesn't this bother him? I mean, this floored me. This freaking devastated me. My heart was completely broken. I couldn't wrap my head around it. All the things they're telling you. In our time, there was not as much information, and it was just so shocking. Like we were so young, and it was just, I had a really hard time in the beginning. And he didn't seem to have, not like he was like, happy go lucky about it or anything, but he just didn't seem to be sad like I was. He didn't seem to be, he just didn't show it to me. He kept
I
it.
think that's a really common thing with couples
Yeah.
is like processing it.
Yeah.
And it did get to a point where like we were both sad at first, I think, but he didn't necessarily show that. He was more, I always say how it's always like you read about, or I know most women are like, okay, we got this diagnosis. Let's do this, this, and this. I wasn't like that. I was like frozen, and he was a little more like that, probably not the same way. a woman would do it, but he was like, I'm like, okay, well, this is what it is. We'll do what we can. We'll get this and this, and we'll just have to figure it out. Where I was just like freaked out. But there came to a point where I was like ongoing sad about it. And we literally had a moment one time when I was crying, and he's like, why are you still sad about this? Like, you got to move on. And I was like, I'm going to murder you. But it was just like,
Is that before or after I'm finished grieving you?
I was actually gonna say that, Jamie. I think everyone, you just grieve it so differently. Like,
Yeah.
And it
got
comes
pissed
and
off.
goes, like-
Yeah, because I'm like, why aren't you feeling like I'm feeling? Why aren't you devastated?
Mhm.
She'll be fine, Jen. No, she won't be fine. Nothing's gonna be fine again.
Yeah.
It was
And
a
I think-
grieving, different
I
grieving.
think with Neil
Sorry, Jen.
specifically, he wanted to make sure I was okay. That's where his thing was. He wanted to make sure I was okay. And he was hurt and he was devastated and he was sad. He didn't show it in front of me. He was sad when he was alone in the car. He wasn't doing it where I could see it, and obviously found out later in conversations and stuff like that. And it was just like weird, but everybody, they process things differently, and we
Big,
don't always
huge-
agree even now on stuff to do with her. He's kind of more like, let's just let her be. She's happy, she's fine, she's content. And I'm like, no, like, I want to get anything out of her that we can get out of her, because my whole thing is I want her to be able to communicate as much as she possibly can, so when we're not here anymore, she can get her needs met. He'll do whatever I want to do, but like, he just doesn't necessarily, it's not as important to him as it is to me, because I'm more fixated on now that we're getting older. Like, I'm in my 40s, he's 51. Like, we're not always going to be here.
back to the
And did you-
anxiety. It's like the ultimate thing we can't control.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that a lot too. I walk through my feelings. I plow through my feelings. I sit in them. I feel everything to my core. If I'm sad about something, we're going to feel it and move through it. And then we get to the other side. He kind of likes to walk around the edge and make it out the other side. We're completely opposite in that way. And I like to talk things to death. I like to feel them and
Same.
all over everything with you. And he's like, I literally cannot talk about this for one more second. We need to get out of here, run as fast as we can, shut the door behind us, and maybe we'll crack it open sometime in the future,
And sometimes they can't always be that person for you. You have to find that somewhere else.
Yeah.
I
In a
think I might
friend,
be Nick.
a sibling,
I6 tabs.
Yeah.
sometimes you have to get those feelings out to somebody else, because, after 3 or 4 times, sometimes our husbands go deaf.
I think sometimes you learn, just having this in your relationships, you learn how to navigate your relationships better, or it shows things about people. Like, I think any major trial in your marriage or a relationship with someone, or in co-parenting, if you have a disabled child, it shows a lot in a person. But there's also a lot of things we've learned about each other, like just what Kimmy was talking about a little while ago. She was freaking out, so he was trying to support her. That's something I think we've learned in marriage through all this, is like, if anything major happens, one of us is allowed to freak out about it. If we get in a car accident and Isaac's like mad, screaming at the person, I have to stay calm in that moment and think through, like, logically, and I can't be as upset. And that's something we've taken, I think, from this, and it's like picking your battles with our kids. Like, you just learn, like, okay, I need to be the rock in this moment right now, and you are allowed to like feel how you need to feel. And I feel like we do that a lot, and probably more so with him, and I get a little more irrational, but whatever.
Whatever. I feel like one of the things that we've learned in this last year has, where we've been a little bit more healthy and successful within our relationship, is to accept that the other person can change, because we did have the pleasure of all these years prior to having C to build our relationship. We went through a lot of trials in that time, like in a similar road to infertility. We dealt with adoptions that just did not go awesome, and they really shook us. And luckily we were there for each other in that same, like, one of you can be a storm and the other one can be the stone, and flip flop that. I do think that gave us foundation, but it also set an awful lot of patterns of like, well, since I have it under control, he must be in a shitstorm. So then he comes home with an eyebrow askew, and I'm like, what? And he's like, nothing. What? And I'm like, you did that face. Like, I'm used to
You
then
did that face.
you move that eyebrow and you think I'm a failure. you know, whatever.
Yeah.
Like you know, we like fight when there isn't one until we learned that the other person really can change. Like he might just come home with a cockamamie eyebrow. Why don't you just stand down, Rachel?
Yeah. Well, in this life, there's like research on people's happiness in marriage, and usually the early years of having children is the least happy that they're in their marriage, first 5 to 6 years of having kids. My brother said something once to me. He's like, well, no matter what, if anyone is around the two of you, you have a foundation of commitment to each other. And that is the most important, because if you can look each other in the face and say, we are committed to this and each other and building our family in whatever way that looks, then you can have those eyebrow fights and make it out the other side and know that you're going to land someplace soft, maybe in a week or two after the air has cleared. There's light at the end of the tunnel if you can find the commitment to each other and who you were when you first fell in love with each other and came together as a whole, and not all these other things were taking up space in your life. So I thought that was really profound of my brother. I'm like, yes, good call, sir, on the
Yeah.
And
philosophy.
I think the more things you go through, the more losses you face, the more hardships you face. It like just strengthens that bond, so even if things aren't great at the time, that strength is underneath there, so that like gets you through, because I know no matter what, if I need him, he's there, even if he is hating me at that moment. If something happens, it doesn't matter. Like nothing else matters. When you're going through the harder times, especially with a child with autism, it's easy to get lost in that.
I think people have this idea of relationships and fantasies that everything feels magic when you're in love with someone.
Those wedding cards are a liar. I told you that already.
Don't go down that aisle of the
Exactly.
Valentine's Day cards, $4.99, not spitting the truth. Here's where it is. Here's where you find the love. In the hard moments where someone holds you up, in the quiet moments of pain, and in small moments of celebration. It really is in those moments that you find the deep, like sing-songy love song is there. It's not in the magic walk down the stairs in your sparkly gown situation. It's when you're building this life with each other, that's where you find real true love. Deep.
I think
deep,
too,
rich
there
love.
might be some like, hey, remember that time you were walking down the stairs in that sparkling dress that had our daughter's poop on it? And then you slid down the stairs on a Lego.
Yes.
10 years later, when we're laughing about the poop on that sparkling dress,
Yeah.
that's when there's
That's
magic.
where the magic is.
Me and Neil are actually fighting. What's that thing when you go into the reception hall and like they call everybody, but the front, we're fighting, we're bickering back and forth. I don't know what about like as everybody's being called, so it's like we're a little too comfortable at that point.
We were fighting right after our wedding pictures when you're like starving. So we had like the ceremony.
That's what it was.
Breaking
Yeah.
line.
Everybody needs a Snickers right then.
We went to Five Guys.
Eat a snack on your wedding day.
Jen, we're going to be there for you. We'll have
Yeah.
the twin snakes
Twin
ready
snakes.
between the ceremony and the reception.
I'll have a
blood
pizza
sugar.
there that you can pick all the cheese off.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you, Jamie.
Pretty much this is the marriage. Happy Valentine's Day, people. February 14th.
Don't have too many expectations, and it will just be better off.
Whatevs. I'm like, buy your damn self some flowers in a coffee mug.
Yeah.
You know his card number.
Find your love language. Tell your
Come do my
spouse.
dishes and I'll love you.
Get the flashcards of what you actually want for Valentine's Day. Don't expect them to know what you want, people, as Kim McIsaac has to say.
Mhm.
Get your flashcards. Finding time for love is important in this life that we have, whether you are out there searching for your partner or in a long-term relationship or marriage. It's not easy. It is not easy. Gotta
Again,
put
if
it
you're
in-
searching, that's table for 5 at gmail.com.
If you we will know you, Jen's specific qualifications of a potential partner. No tiny white shorts. That's a no.
You give me two?
forgot about those.
Nocturnal dates for now,
I forget.
unless he comes with a caregiver sister.
Yeah.
Whatever.
You might fall asleep.
You might, yeah, you may have
While
to
you're
knock
knocking.
on the door. Yeah.
Yeah. but
Knock
Knock
Jen-
harder.
Jen
my God.
is a gem.
Yes.
I
And
would
Rach
date-
called her a strong ass earlier. She has a great ass. We've all seen the pictures.
Oh my
so
gosh.
Just so you know.
hot lady. I would date her if I was single. Just saying. Table for
I
five
don't know how this went off the rails.
at gmail.com.
Thanks, Jobs.
Yeah. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Valentine's
Happy
Day.
Valentine's Day.
If you didn't get any roses today, get them tomorrow for half off.
Thank you for joining us at the table for the second episode of our 9th series, All the Love. If you are enjoying the podcast and where you're listening allows, we would appreciate if you could rate and review us. Make sure you're following us on Facebook and Instagram. If you'd like to contact us, please email us at tablefor5podcast@gmail.com. We have new episodes every Monday. Join us next week for more. See you there. Bye.